Recorded Books and RB Digital present The Book of Lost Saints by Daniel Jose Older. Narrated by Sofia Quintero. Part 1, Tirar. Chapter 1. His name is Gomez. He carries a butcher knife in one hand, a chicken in the other. The chicken doesn't flap, doesn't tremble, just waits, watching everything. Back. Step back. The blade is sharp, but the face is kind. Hardened, but kind. And the blood splattered on the apron is old. Isabel sent me, says a little girl's voice. My voice. Gomez scrunches up his face as if he's a giant and She? We are one of the little people they speak of that live in the forest outside of town. Town? A town on the outskirts of a big city, a confluence of voices nearby, a market. Her sister, Gomez says. He nods. I see it now. Then he turns, holds the chicken down on the counter, and thwunk, beheads it, and the blood gushes then trickles onto the floor. Then he angles his body just so, after a conspiratorial wink down at us, and does something to the chicken. It takes him a few minutes' worth of sweating and mumbling carajo and adjusting his shoulders, and all the while the sound of a heart beats languidly around us. Gagum. It had somehow been there all along, and now just gets louder and louder. It is gigantic, so big it must belong to the whole world. Finally, Gomez turns back around and hands us the paper bag, already wet from the newly dead bird and heavy. Too heavy. He doesn't notice the heart that beats through the plaster walls of his shop, the tiny interruptions on the surfaces of puddles out in the street, the way the whole universe rattles with each gagum. Careful out there, he says, watching us struggle with the weight of the bag. But of course we'll be careful. The streets are full of soldiers and walking bad dreams. When we look down, the thunder of that heart bursting through us, blood has already dripped onto our pretty, new shoes. Ramon! A gruff and familiar voice, it yanks me forward along the pathway of that slow-beating heart, away from those tiny blood-stained shoes, into a small, ugly room with only a couch. On that couch, a gigantic man sits up, blinking awake. Ramon, te toca a ti. That is not my name. I have no name. I have nothing. Am nothing. But I know that voice. And, distantly, I know the face of the man in front of me, who now rubs his eyes and glances around, bemused. Stubble from a few days without shaving crescents the bottom of his light brown face. His mouth hangs slightly open as he blinks away the fluorescent glare from above. I know him. Knew him once. Once, when I was whole. Shreds of it echo back to me, an old book, hurled across the cluttered office. A tower blocking out the sun. The smell of the ocean. A few indistinguishable splinters of voice, the creases of a face. Gunfire, and the pound of wood against flesh. That's it. The fractured puzzle pieces. Useless, really. I had been here all along. Whatever happened to me, I lingered. I held on and remained, as my body turned to dust and my mind rejoined the swirl of whatever it is that minds swirl up into. At some point I must have become we, and the little parts of me scattered into a great, pulsing collective of minds. And we watched. We watched. We watched and we waited, processing, sometimes judging. Sometimes we dithered inwardly or sneered, that faraway crinkle in the fabric of the world you sense. We cringe when everything goes wrong or exulted in some sweet conflagration. But now I've been spat back out. Pulled, really. A second chance.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?